Hey everyone! I am really excited to be able to share this bonus episode with you today. It turns out that Ross and I had something really big in common, which is that we're both interested in programming. So he and I got to talking, and I decided that we could use this talk as a whole separate episode. So I wanted to present that to you today. I hope you enjoy it. If you're interested in computer science at all, you will probably be really intrigued by this conversation. Even if you don't know anything about computer science at all, I still think that it's really interesting for everybody to start to understand how people with disabilities interact with tools that everyone has to use every day in this digital age. So, with that said, I just also wanted to take a second to thank everybody for your support of the show so far. I'm really excited about season 2, and I can't wait to get that to you all. So speaking of developers, you're studying software engineering, right?
Yes.
So that's something we have in common because I studied computer engineering in college,
Oh,
and
cool.
I was wondering what got you interested in software.
Yeah. So growing up, especially after I went blind, like I hated software and computers and all of that. But as I grew older, I started to realize like all the ways that technology benefited me, but B, all the progress that still had to be made. And I was like, throughout growing up throughout my life, I've always been like a fixer. So if there's a problem, like I'm if there's a problem in my life, I'm gonna fix it. And so I keep running into these accessibility issues. I was like, all right, well, I guess that's my career path. Like that's what I'm gonna fix. But like it, it was never really. I didn't know that until probably like until I retired from Paralympics. Because like, yeah, I was at university before I went to the Paralympics, and then I put university on hold, did Paralympics for a couple years, and then now I'm back in school because just I would rather do that now. So it took me a while to get here, but that's yeah, like that's why I like programming. I'm not like amazing at it. I'm not even like revolutionary in it. Like I'm average, but that's
Yeah.
like I'm still new and I love that and it's hard. I find it hard and challenging, but at the same time I love it because like I know I'm going to use what I learn for something good in the future.
Yeah, that's actually really similar to why I got into it.
Hmm.
Sort of similar. I don't have personal experience with a disability in
Hmm.
terms of needing anything to be more accessible to me, but I just, first of all, I got into programming because I like video games. So
Hmm.
the very first programming related thing I did was a class about video game design for Xbox 360 that
Nice.
was just over the summer when I was in high school.
Hmm.
And I just started to see, like, with the way technology is developing so rapidly and getting more and more affordable, what kind of change you can make in the world and what kind of tools you can make. So that's my
Yes,
mission. That's what
definitely.
I want to do as a programmer. Okay, so I'm definitely curious what kind of tools you use for programming as a blind person. Are
Oh
there
yeah.
any like plugins for Visual Studio Code or
Yeah, this
some features like that?
yeah, your mind is like gonna explode. Like just 'cause like you have the accessibility world and then you have the accessibility and programming world because like
Okay.
there's just a lot. So for example, most blind people prefer to use Notepad. Nothing else, just Notepad.
W-
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because a lot of blind people, including myself, just find Visual Studio very cluttered and clunky to
Yeah.
use with a screen reader. It's accessible. Microsoft makes accessible programs and software and all that, but it I like Notepad for many blind people works right out of the box. While
Hmm.
I remember when I experimented or used to use Visual Studio, it would constantly autocorrect my code. Well, for a sighted person, that may pop up like in the corner, but for me, like it would just take over my screen reader and like try to change my code to what it thought it would do. And then I'd have to dig through the
Oh,
settings to try to get it not to do that. And so, yeah, and it also entirely depends on the project. Because I know of a Visual Studio plugin that I actually, uh, I don't want to say I helped beta test it, but like, yeah, I guess I beta tested it. But so there was these, I think there were these Microsoft developers. This was back in like 2017, and they showed me this Visual Studio add-on or plugin that's now been released, I'm pretty sure. I don't even remember what it's called, but essentially it analyzes whatever code you're in and detects all of the blocks and whatnot. And so then you can do a key command and pull up like a tree view of all your classes and methods or functions, whatever you want to call it. And something like that was really, really useful for using Visual Studio. Um,
yeah.
and but still, I prefer Notepad because like my each of my files aren't that big because I prefer to separate or like organize all of my what you would call it scripts and whatnot. So but like if I were to create an app, I feel like Visual Studio may be easier. I don't know though, but that's I don't want to speak for all blind people, but I know many blind people use just Notepad. And I'm trying to think like I know I'm going on a lot, but let's see what else is
Hey,
there.
the more the better. I'm
Yeah,
super
right.
curious.
Because like a lot of things to me are very normalized. So it's hard to think about like, oh, like other people may find that interesting. I know blind people, if we're referring to, I guess not any language, the debate between like tabs and spaces is very heated still. Blind people are still like 50-50 on that just as much as sighted people. Um, yeah, I would say like that's it off the top of my head because I honestly haven't had a lot of experience actually working or collaborating with blind programmers. So like I can't really say like, oh, how blind people comment in their code versus sighted people and stuff like
Mhm.
that. Because I just don't know. I can only say what I do. So, but yeah.
Yeah. I was shocked about Notepad at first, but it actually makes so much sense because
Yeah.
when I think about the reasons why I don't want to use Notepad, it's just because it doesn't color code the text.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, exactly. And that means nothing to us.
yeah, that's a major crutch that I just use is the color coding of the text.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so I have a question that maybe this is one of the things that you didn't think of off the top of your head.
Hmm.
So I read that whenever you're writing hashtags,
Hmm.
it can be really helpful if you use an uppercase letter for each distinct word in the
Yes.
hashtag, for when somebody's using a screen reader so it can read
Hmm.
it as separate words.
Yep.
Um, so that got me thinking, are there any tips for making code that's more accessible to a blind person? Like, for example, is there any syntax that's more or less confusing?
Yeah, so I prefer I I think it just I don't want to say it needs to strictly follow the same syntax as hashtags. Um, but I would say pretty close. Like uppercase stuff is a lot easier to read.
Hmm.
Um, so like a good example is in C sharp, if you wanted to use console dot write line, if it were all lowercase, it would be a console dot write like you can't even say it.
Oh,
But if you had like console dot write line and then everything was capitalized, that would work. But if you had console dot lowercase w and then capital R, that would
oh,
also work. So yeah, screen readers are kind of tricky with that. So personally, I say a good naming convention is just do caps for each word, especially with variables. And then more nitpicky stuff that's probably just exclusive to me. Like it drives me up the walls when people use underscores and variables. Like like current underscore user. I'm just like, oh no, because that's like it makes sense, right? But that's another word for my screen reader to read, like current underscore user instead of just current user. So
No, I'm also on team camel case. I don't go
yeah.
for underscores. I don't
hmm
know why. I just never went for underscores.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so if somebody who's blind is interested in becoming a software developer, do you have any resources in mind that could help them out?
Yeah, I would say so. There are a lot of resources online to learning code, but there are not a lot of accessible resources. And so I would a lot part of the thing that made it difficult for me to pick up programming was I was faced with this accessibility barrier. And so like I could work around it, but by the time I did, like I just got so burnt out. And the way I got around that was finding something I was extremely passionate about. Like I was like, I have to program this. Like this is my idea. Like I'm not giving this idea to anyone else. Like I have to program this, and like that passion will be enough to drive you. So,
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Is Stack Overflow accessible?
ugh, it's kind of accessible. Like it's got a very like early 2000s vibe to it as far as like the
Hmm.
forums, you know. So like it a lot of like headings and lists and like pointless what's the word I'm looking for? Signatures at the end of posts and weird quoting system when you quote a different post. So like stuff like that make it difficult for me to use it. I generally prefer to use Reddit when it comes to code issues, but that's just me.
Yeah. If you have a question, or if you know of any adaptive tech that you think should be featured in an episode, or if you just want to get in touch, email me at modernaccesspod@gmail.com, or you can leave a voice message on Anchor and it might get played on the show. The easiest way to support this show is to subscribe to Modern Access wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also follow Modern Access Pod on social media. Modern Access is produced and hosted by me, Coach Kaitlin. This show's theme music was written by Quentin Wolf. Graphic design for Modern Access is done by Allison Manares. Thanks to you for listening.